Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, President and CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. And welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have The Inner Circle with Colleen Biggs. Colleen Biggs is an award-winning peak performance consultant with over 18 years of experience, has launched over 340 businesses, is an international speaker, author to a #1 international bestseller, Anatomy of Accomplished, the CEO of 2 successful businesses, and a podcast called Take the Leap. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Miss Colleen Biggs. Hey, Colleen, how are you?
Oh my gosh, Kimberly, I am too good to be true blessed. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm honored to be on your podcast, on your stage.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. We have talked and we have a lot to talk about. There's been a lot of great changes in your life and all the things that are coming forward. So I'm so excited to hear about this, and I'm sure my audience is going to be excited as well. But before we go down that path and take that leap of our conversation, why don't you tell my listeners just a little bit more about who Colleen Biggs really is?
Yeah, so some of the stuff that, isn't that professional, in our bio, most people that have never met me, they don't know that my husband and I have 7 kids, and we have 12 grandkids now. Little Parker was born a few weeks ago. And so family is the #1 thing for me in my life. We have a big family. I love to get together with family. And I really feel like family is what gives us our motivation, or gives me my motivation to leave a lasting legacy and to create the change in this world that I desire to see for my grandkids and my great-grandkids to grow up in, and give, really blaze the trail forward for my daughters, my granddaughters, of course, my great-granddaughters, and them after them, to be able to have their voices be heard, have themselves really be seen, and for them to see themselves for who they are, and create that visibility for them so that, that they're not afraid to speak up. And I think that's important, as all of us are, creating more and more opportunities for women. I also, like you mentioned, I come from the corporate America arena, and I just never realized my full potential while I was in corporate America. However, I did work with, 300 and some business owners when they were launching their businesses to help them realize their greatest potential and apply that to their businesses, which is, really my expertise in what I do. So, I hit the pounding the pavement, I guess you could say, hit the trail running. When I became an entrepreneur, I knew only my clients as entrepreneurs. I didn't know anyone else. So I had to figure out how to build authority, how to, build expertise, how to become someone that people were interested in working with in my industry. And, that was a creation of something I just, created out of nothing for myself, utilizing and leveraging my skill sets, my knowledge, my experience.
Wow. Well, you definitely said a lot there, and I love the enthusiasm, and I'm still stuck on the part that you have 7 children, okay? I'm like, wow. Did not expect that to come out of you there, Colleen, okay? So, I mean, it's just amazing story. I love the family side. I always think that's the most important too. I think a lot of times as, entrepreneurs, we focus, people focus more just on that part, not realizing that we're just as human as everybody else and we have lives. But you're absolutely right about that legacy part and truly wanting to get people to our children to understand the importance of your voice, and you having this opportunity as well as helping other people launch their voices. And your story is even more interesting. And I would definitely want you to dive more into how you just mentioned a few minutes ago about the fact that, you know, you've been helping all these people all those years and not realizing really the value of your voice. So talk about that journey and what really made you, what was the one thing that really opened you up to realize that you could do this? You could be in the business and you could serve your voice in a different manner.
Yeah, it's time to get real, y'all. Here we go.
Here we go.
You know, coming out of corporate America, Kimberly, and this was my experience, and many women, because I primarily work with women, they've shared this with me. And coming out of the corporate world, when they were in corporate as well, and they've had this similar experience, they were, you know, kind of in the box, kept on the wheel. There's no I in team, right? You work together with others. So it's not about standing out. You don't, It's not about you standing out in corporate America. It's very hard to do that. So when you have a job description in corporate America, you're paid what you're worth. I think everyone agrees with that. They pay you a salary based on your job description, which is what you're worth to the company. Well, it's very dangerous for an individual coming from that culture to become an entrepreneur, because what happens? You go from making a great salary like I was, or a consistent salary, let's just say for anyone coming out of corporate America, to a zero salary as an entrepreneur. So immediately I felt like my worth was zero. If I couldn't make any money, I was worth nothing, because I was brainwashed to believe my worth was what I made.
Right.
And that was the biggest struggle for me. And using my voice and being seen, because this happens a lot to a lot of women that I coach as well. They forget that they just came from 30 years experience of training and expertise of what they've been doing. They now have all of that to apply to this business that they're starting. So many of them, just like I did, I separated my corporate time from my entrepreneurship. So here I am starting new. Who is going to want to hire me? And then I was like, hey, wake up. You have 30 years experience of this. What are you talking about? Who would want to hire you? You have more experience than a lot of people do in working with, you know, business owners and launching businesses successfully, and training, you know, in sales. Right. You have so much to offer individuals that don't have that experience. So it took a while for me to really dial in on what my why was, what the bigger impact was that I wanted to create, who I wanted to serve, and that's changed over time. Even, you know, as I've grown, who I serve over time has changed. But really leaning in and not being afraid to talk about my purpose, why I'm here, why God put me on this earth, why I'm so unique, and embracing me as an individual, and knowing that I was enough. Like, I didn't have to have all these fancy credentials. And, you know, I always tell everyone, I went to the school of Taekwondo. If anyone can go for 4 years to Taekwondo to become a black belt like I did, that's harder than college. So good luck.
Right. But, you know, the thing I like what you just said is that, you know, you put the value of, if I wasn't making $0, I was a nobody. I didn't, you know, nobody would hire me. And, you know, and that is the number one thought we all have. And because it's a conformity thing, you know, everybody tells you, well, you have to be making these millions. You got to be doing this. You got to be doing that in order to be considered successful. So everybody's already redefined who they think you are or what you should be, and they really know nothing about you. And then, you know, we are so used to hearing that you have to be making that dollar sign in order to be considered somebody worthy, and to sit back and to realize that, you know what, I'm worth more than just the dollar sign. And it takes time for us to all figure that out. But when we do, it's amazing how you blossom. And the joy in your voice right now, it is just amazing. I can just hear everything in your voice and the attention that you've put into yourself, that it was worth all the agony and the leap forward that you had to make in order to get to where you're at right now and continuing to move forward. So talk more about the leap forward that you're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you for asking me that, Kimberly. And it has been a lot of work. And this is, I just got off earlier today finishing up the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill with my book club. And the reason why I run a book club in my community for my clients and for the women that are in the LEAP community is because that personal development piece is so important. And unless we're willing to go on the spiritual journey and really dig within inside of ourselves and figure out all of the things that are holding us back and all the disbeliefs and the imposter syndrome and all of those pieces, we'll never get to the fullest peak potential of success that we can have and are blessed to be able to have on our path, because we will stop ourselves. It's just the choice that we make every day. And I really determined and believed every second of this journey that I create my reality. No one else gives me permission. I give myself permission. And that's coming from a world where I was allowing others to give me permission. I gave my power away to others to label me, to tell me I wasn't a leader, to tell me I could or couldn't have a position in corporate America. Even the thought of going back to that world today just makes me cringe, The freedoms that I have to be the best that I could possibly be is what I'm doing today. I have the choice every day to wake up with the thought of building myself up or burning myself down. And I choose to build myself up daily. And by building myself up daily, my cup runs over, and then I make a bigger impact by inspiring women that are also doing these big things and making these big shifts and these big changes and creating huge impacts so they can inspire change in others, so they can build unlimited success for themselves, and so they too can leave a legacy behind. And that's the important piece. Women's power is used always for good. It's used for change, for impact, for nurture, for bringing others with us. And unfortunately, the word power in today's society and culture has been used in a very negative connotation. And unfortunately, men have been the providers in the workplace and the starters of workplaces for centuries, right? So
you're absolutely
we
right.
see power in how it's been used as men using it to manipulate, to hold power over others, for it to be a thing that is power is not good, right? It's for money, it's for greed, it's for ego.
Right.
Women aren't that way. And many women today, and I'm not saying all men are that way either, but traditionally that's what we've seen in society and culture.
Absolutely.
Today, women have the opportunity to step into more of their power and utilize it for good. And we, as a mother of 7 kids, as a mother of, as a sister, as a daughter, as a friend, women have given their power away to everybody for centuries because we feel the need to have to put everybody else first. I'm sure you were raised the same as me, Kimberly, where it was selfish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is in the past. We can't change the future and the future leaders and female leaders in the future. The women today are continuing to raise their daughters the way they were raised, which will raise their daughters the way they were raised, which will raise their daughters the way they were raised.
Absolutely.
We're never changing the landscape unless we decide to stand up, make a change for ourselves, forge forward without permission of others. And it's not egotistical. It's not selfish. It's about how do I make a greater impact by filling my cup first and being that beacon for others to follow so they can come out of the shadows and they can be seen. It's about lifting everybody up.
Exactly. Well, first of all, let me just say, Colleen, you are on the preaching table tonight. Okay. Like, you are on top of it tonight. I mean, everything you said was 100% accurate. You know, we do as women, we are constantly always on the back burner. We are constantly pushing everybody else forward. And you're right. If we don't break that craziness of circle of, well, no, maybe we'll get there, but we're going to deal with everybody else. So if we don't break that cycle, then we're never going to grow. We're never going to get out of that nonsense of, oh, well, women can come later on. But you're right. We were raised that way. It's always been the effect that, the man is the first thing, and then you deal with the children. And then, if there's time for you, you may be able to get there. But that is craziness, and we all know the capabilities of women. And I think that a part of that is the reason why they don't want women to have that type of power, even though every day we're constantly breaking those, glass ceilings, and we're constantly doing things. We've been doing it way before anybody ever talked about it. They just didn't they want us to be seen in a way that we needed to be seen. But it is truly up to us. And, powerful people like you, the awakening you have had, like I said, I can just hear it in your voice, in the joy. And then that type of joy and that awakening you have is definitely something that you have the capability to enhance and give to somebody else, because there is definitely somebody right now listening to us saying, that's me. That was me. And how do I break out of this? But hearing these stories is exactly how you do break out of it, because we all have value. It's just that if you don't know what that value is, you're not going to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because every listener knows right now that's listening that when an Olympic record is broken, that hasn't been broken in 5 years, what happens immediately after it's broken? Like 4 people go and break the record right away, because they need to see it's possible first. Once they know it's possible, then we remove that limit, and now we can do it. So we're no different as women. Kimberly, you have this responsibility. I have this responsibility. Any female owner that is in a leadership position of influence has the responsibility to move the mountain to show another woman it's possible. Mm-hmm. And if we're not doing that, shame on you.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's still a constant conversation that has to be had as well, is that, when we do have women who are our power and they have forgotten, we all have been there, where you have those people who've forgotten who they are, where they came from, how they made those leaps, and they're not helping. They're not providing those resources. They're not giving them that leap that they need to have to make them, to encourage them to be in the spot that they need to be into, because it's a reality that, we all depend on each other. But I think a lot of times people do absolutely forget that you can go nowhere without others, no matter what level or where you start from.
Ooh, I'm glad you said that, because my famous saying, I teach workshops on this, and my clients will tell you, we already know the saying, your network is your net worth. Mm-hmm. And I can't strongly enough say out loud enough times to anyone that who you surround yourself with is who you will become, period. So if people are in your circle that are negative, if people are in your circle that are naysayers, if people are in your circle that do not support you, move them outside your inner circle. You have got to have the most powerful inner circle of people you surround yourself with. And we ended the book club this week on Think and Grow Rich. We're starting Atomic Habits next week. And every single female in that club said to me, and it wasn't about me being the leader, they said, thank you for creating this space for me to be able to come here and grow from everybody else in it, and to push myself and to have the support through the changes. Because like you said, we want to do it in a group. And, I know for a fact, if infant babies are born and they're left alone, they will die.
Yep.
Like you could feed them through a tube and they'll still pass. They need interaction, touch, love, caressing, right? They're born with 2 things. We're all born with 2 things, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. So if you have more fears than that, they've been created because you weren't born with them. So that means they can also go away because they're just made up. They're not real.
Right. And then it's a mindset. Yeah. And it's absolutely just a mindset, because if you've been told over and over what you cannot do, you literally get to the point where you actually believe that. So it's truly just a mindset change, but you need to understand, like you said, taking that journey within yourself to understand who you are. You know, what are the things that are holding you back? Why are they holding you back? Because there's something there that's not allowing you to move forward. And so in order for you to change the mindset, you have to dig. You have to dig much deeper into you to understand, because like say, you know, if you don't know your past, how can you move forward? You know, how can you continue to grow if you don't understand what's really stagnating you to be in the place that you're in, and telling yourself that you cannot accomplish anything. And, you know, another good example, I heard a story today about a young lady who got offers to go to college for 54 different places. I believe it was either 54 or 59 or something. It was a large number. But the thing that I love that she said in her statement was that there was an opportunity there for me to apply. And she put her best foot forward to do that. Nobody gave it to her. She literally put in the time to apply, to make the opportunity of change for herself, you know, to be able to stand out and determine what was going to be best for her. Nobody said, no, this is all you're worth. She said, no, this is what I'm worth. So to take that time out and put in all that extra effort to apply to all these different colleges, and every single one of them responded back with a yes. That to me was pretty amazing. But that right there is just a great example of what it takes to understand who you are, knowing how you need to move forward, and then how also breaking that cycle that we've been talking about, you know, women just doing the little bit of minimum in order to satisfy what society believes that you should be doing.
Yes, girl. I mean, come on. Good for her. She wanted to be seen, and she was ready to have her voice be heard. And that is so, so, so important that we recognize that, and that we get out there and we do not wait for no one gave her permission to do that. She gave herself the permission. So it starts with you. It starts with you. And do you know this, Kimberly? There is not a difference, and I know this from working with them as clients. There is not a difference of a female who is stuck making 5 figures trying to get to 6 figures than there is a female making 12 million trying to get to 20 million. There is no difference. They are suffering from the same things. It becomes everything that we talk about, the disbelief, the imposter syndrome. Whenever we hit a new level, we hit the same barriers. And so you just need that, you know, you need someone to surround yourself with. And there's a knowledge piece that you need to understand at that point, because you've grown, and you've grown a little bit more. Now you've grown a little bit more. And we think that once we've squashed it once, it goes away. But the imposter syndrome that I struggle with today looks different than the imposter syndrome I struggled with 4 years ago. Exactly. Right? Or 20 years ago. But we have to recognize that it's going to show it's going to rear its ugly little head. You need to acknowledge it and work through it to get to the other side. And that's the spiritual journey and the work we need to do on ourselves. And so many people think it's something wrong with their business. Oh, there must be something wrong with my business. Right. There's something going on that I'm not producing something in my business. No, it's something that you're not doing right. And it might be a lack of knowledge of some area. It might be you're not pushing hard enough in an area. It usually starts with us. That's why Michael Jackson said it so perfect when he said, you know, the man in the mirror. Like, you want to figure out what's wrong, look in the mirror.
That's right.
It's all the man in the mirror.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it is. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's the reality. It's just learning how to go back and taking that self-assessment of who you are. And, you know, like I said, why do you have those fears? And we all know it's if you're not growing, you're definitely going to have fears. It's only human for us to have that little bit of fear, but you need to understand what's causing you to stay there. And until you take that opportunity to reevaluate, like you said, who is it, who you are around, or is it something you're not educated on? What is it that's stopping you from making that move? You will always continually sit there and wonder why you haven't excelled. And then you'll get right back into that slump of, well, this is what everybody expects me to do attitude. And it's not about everybody else. It truly does have to start with you. And like I always tell people, I had a conversation with somebody here recently about the fact, like, hey, you have girls that, you know, are seeing you in business, young ladies, you need to start them at a young age. You don't wait and don't say, hey, they're too young to start a business. No, they can start now. They can start learning from you and understanding what it takes to be in business and how you can get from point A to point B. So if you're not already drilling that into the young people's mind, especially with our girls, then they'll always think that they have to wait. They don't need to wait for anything.
Yes. It makes me so mad when the moms sell the Girl Scout cookies for the girls. Whenever anyone comes to me and says, my daughter's selling Girl Scout cookies, do you want to buy some? I always go back to them and say, have your daughter ask me.
Right. And then explain.
Like, we're not teaching them anything.
Exactly. Because you're doing all the work.
Your daughter. So she's learning nothing. I mean, gosh, when I was a brownie and a Girl Scout way back in the day, I had to like sell everything. Everything. I had to sell every chocolate bar, every cookie pack. My parents didn't do anything to help me sell a thing. And how have we gotten into a society where enabling them, where we're doing it all for them, and that makes them look really great because it's whoever sells the most is the winner. That's not what it's about. Did anyone learn anything through the process? So we need to realize that success looks different for a lot of people. Success to some women might look like time freedom with my family, time freedom with, you know, my work.
Exactly.
It might look like retirement. It might look like being a grandma every day and not, you know, having the freedom of time. It might be climbing the corporate ladder. So we need to realize that success looks very different from person to person.
Absolutely.
And the only way we can truly assist other people is get into the map of their world, understand their goals, what they desire, and support them through that to get them where they desire to be. It's not about us. It's about them when it comes to that support.
Right.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that, you know, kind of to piggyback on what we were talking about with the cookie thing, you know, the biggest problem with people when they say, oh, you know, I'm trying to sell the most for my kid, what they're showing them is instant gratification. They did not earn anything because they did it all for them instead of them getting out there and selling those cookies. And that's the problem of the world we live in today. Everybody instantly wants it all right now. They don't want to think about the process it takes for you to get there. They're so busy trying to just get to the destination. They don't even understand what the process is. And that's been the biggest problem because everything has been made very simple. You know, you got the technology today. It's like, oh, you know, I'm going to get on there and I'm going to show what I can do on TikTok or whatever, all these different social media platforms have, but they don't. And so, you know, if they make it instantly right then and there, they think that that's what life is all about. And they think they can continue that. And some are successful at it. Don't get me wrong. But at the same point, what are you showing? What are you really making people understand? You know, there was a time when we were coming up and I can say, you know, I'm in my mid-50s. So, you know, you earned everything. You had the levels and the values that you had to go to. You just didn't instantly become the president. You earned every single step that you made in order to get to that point. And you learned the lessons from it. You know, you had the on-the-job training. You understood what it meant to be mentored. And even though they didn't call it mentoring back then, it's all the same things, the things that we are now having to reteach in folks because they're not learning that all the time in school. They're not learning that always at home because they're being influenced by everything else that surrounds them that they don't need to be influenced because they're so busy trying to be somebody else instead of being themselves.
Parents need to remember, if we go back and look at the beginning of time and why schools were created, schools were created to create factory workers. That's why they were created, to put children through school so that they would go and work in the factories. That's the very beginning of time. The sad thing is, school has not changed very much since then. They're not creating entrepreneurs.
Right.
You're not coming out with the knowledge of how to balance your checkbook. I mean, back in the day when you and I were in school, Kimberly, they taught us how to sew. They taught us about food. We had physical fitness. There was, you know, you could do shop. You learned how to work on cars. You learned how to do woodworking. There was so much. There was, you know, gardening clubs. There's none of that anymore. In fact, I heard the other day they removed yoga from school because it was seen as evil or something. And I was like,
my gosh.
what? You got to be kidding
me.
So
right?
they're removing patriotism from school. They're removing God from schools. You know, everything is being removed from schools. There isn't anything left for these children to learn. And parents are just thinking that if I send my kids to school, they're going to learn everything they need to learn. And it's not the truth. They're getting zero skills to survive in life. And the problem is that's the bare minimum. They don't even have what they need to survive. How the hell are they ever going to thrive? Going to thrive if you're not the one being the example for that.
That's right. Well, I mean, you know, even when you think about in school, they don't even know how to count money because they've never been taught to even count money.
No.
You know, if they don't have a
calculator. Because they don't need to.
Exactly. But that calculator one day is not going to work, you know, or that when that technology just goes off, it's like, oh, well, how am I supposed to give you your change back? Just the simplest
That happened to me.
Yeah.
Kimberly, has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
I've had a kid stare at me because his thing went down. He was like, how much did you give me? $10. How much was it? $7.50.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like $2.50. He's like, oh, okay. Okay.
I
like,
know, and it's
do the math,
really,
dude.
yeah, and it's not something we should be laughed, but it's the reality of how time and things have changed, and you know, and I definitely, you know, have to give it to the, you know, a lot of the younger generations today, and then of course, you know, with them taking the stance and saying, hey, I don't want to be in school for 4 years. This is what I want to do. I want to be an entrepreneur. And that's great. But there's still enough people out here that you can still learn from. Nobody's saying you have to be like them, but to learn. And it's so important, you know, to get that mentorship, understanding truly what business is about. It's not just about being an overnight success. It's much, much bigger picture than that. And, you know, what you do, as a business and helping these women, you know, all we can do is say that we're setting the foundation. And as long as that foundation is there, all we can hope and pray is that they pick that foundation up and that they actually move forward with it and realize that there's something here that they can build as well. And I think that's the most important part about what we do in the consulting world and in being a part of, you know, wanting to have women understand what their voice is really truly about. And then, of course, how to leave that legacy. So, you know, you're definitely hitting all aspects of what we need to have to continue to grow. And you and I, we could be talking the rest of the night. We could absolutely be talking the rest of the night on this. You know, but we're definitely coming to the end of the show. But I definitely want to give you a few minutes to, you know, tell us about your book, The Anatomy of Accomplishment. Tell us a little bit about it, and then where could we find it?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you that was the very first book 3 years ago that I did as a compilation book. And then last year, which I left off my bio, last year I wrote 5 books. And the biggest, I would say the biggest book that I wrote, because I did some compilations with some other people, but the biggest one was the one I labeled Step into the Spotlight to Expand Your Influence and Attract the Right Clients. And that has everything to do with women showing up authentically as themselves to attract the right people, right? So we can get out of the 70s hustle, you know, do the hustle, and we can get out of that. We don't need to be in the hustle anymore. Let's look at how we just show up as ourselves, the strongest version of us as possible, everywhere we go and everything we do with integrity and honesty, and attract the people you desire to work with, or you desire to have in your community, or you desire to buy your products, right?
Right.
Be who you are, track those right people. So that's the biggest book. And I would say you can find that on my website at ColleenBiggs.net. That's ColleenBiggs.net. Or you can go to Amazon and type in Step into the Spotlight, and you'll find it on Amazon as well.
All right. Wow. So do you want to talk a little bit about your podcast?
Oh, I would love to. So, you know, I've been running a radio show for a long time. And then when COVID hit, we stopped going into the radio station. So I decided to move to podcast format in 2020. And I have been interviewing women for the last 4 years about, you know, leading up in their lives and speaking up, you know, and really using their voices. And I transitioned into 2022. I feel that I'm being called to be bigger, to be bolder, to really step a whole different realm of layer, you know, for 2022. And I do feel that God's calling women to do that as well this year. And so take the leap, the podcast Take the Leap is really going to be about interviewing successful entrepreneurs and business people that have had to take the leap, and they're not afraid to share what that leap felt like I talked about today with you, and what I went through and how I had to work through it and the methods that I used to get on the other side. So it's not just about the success they have today, but we need to know how they did it. What did it feel like? What did you go through? What was the shift? What was the, what happened that shifted you to where you decided to do something different? Because we all suffer with that, and we all in our lives have to take a leap somewhere. And I just want everyone to know that you're no different than anyone else. The leap is scary. You don't know where the safety net is, but I promise you that you will land on both feet. We always do, and you will. You just have to have the faith in yourself to do it. And so that's why I'm, doing that podcast, moving now that forward. So I think, we're at like 165 episodes before we just, switch to take the leap.
All right. Well, Colleen, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and the information that we share, those as I call them peak nuggets that you dropped this evening, have been phenomenal. I'm hoping that, for anyone who's listening out there, that they realize that, we're human. Like I said, we go through things, but if we did not go through the things that we went through, we would not be where we're at today. And that's the most important part, I think, that this whole conversation brings out, and the fact that you have to understand your value. You have to know when it's okay to take a leap and like you said, stand up on your own 2 feet. And for women, we have a voice. Use that voice, because that is truly what your power is. And Colleen, you have definitely brought that power tonight. Like I said, you have been preaching, girl. You've been on that pulpit all night. I just love it. I love it. You have another calling.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I want to tell your listeners one last thing, which is where you are right now in your life is not who you are. It is just where you are, and you have the power to change.
All right. Well, you heard it live, everyone, from Miss Colleen Biggs. Colleen, again, thank you so much for being on the show with me tonight. It has been such a pleasure, and definitely we'll have to talk again, because this has been a phenomenal conversation. So we'll have to reach back out to you so we can hear what's going on, and in a few more months or whatever down the road, because I absolutely believe that, this conversation is exactly what more people need to hear of. So again, thank you for coming on with me this evening. And for everybody else, if you have not been listening to this show, go back and rewind it and keep rewinding it until you get it. Because what we talked about tonight has so much value to the point that if you don't think your voice matters, and you don't think you can dominate the world with your voice and understand your value in the entrepreneurial market or anywhere else in life, then we need to have a conversation. And if you want to have that conversation, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at Kimberly at WSBILC@gmail.com. I can give you that same information. I also can connect you with Colleen if you would love to learn more about what Colleen does and how she can help and open up your world. But again, like I said, we need to have the chat. We all have dreams. If you want to turn those dreams into goals, please reach out to me anytime. And of course, if you'd like to have more of your resource for success, we do accept now monetary donations to support the podcast. And we're now accepted through Cash App, PayPal, Good Pods, Tip Jar, or you can go directly to the website at www.wsbillc.com. Again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We'll be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.